Well, hello, or as we would say, dobro veče in Serbian. This is Alex Paunik in the States, or in Serbia they would say Aleksandar Paunic. And we have Amy Shelver from South Africa being our guest tonight.
Hi, everyone. So great to be here in Serbia.
Excellent. So, again, this is event number 9 now. We want to thank Startit and USAID and Digital Serbia Initiative for summoning us here again. The overall arcing team has been how do we do business in the United States? How do we help companies and people here put them in the best position to present themselves, their companies, their product, their services in the United States? And I'm looking at the Tesla Nation business event. This is a number 9. As we were coming here, I was telling you, I did 5 or 6. It's actually, we did a lot. And I'm really proud of, we actually have some people in the audience. We want to thank them, obviously, for coming here, carving up some time. And we are working very closely with the Startit organization, and kudos to Isidora and Nevenka and Vukashin, where we are always trying to pick some topics that we're going to help you further your cause, further your business, create value prop for the U.S. customers and businesses. And today, we do have a topic, how to professionalize and weaponize your LinkedIn pages for the U.S. market. I picked the word weaponize. It's a little bit aggressive. it's a little bit American in me. But in reality, what are we doing here? We want to show you how your LinkedIn pages, whether it's a personal profile or whether it's a company profile, is going to work for you. And I don't think we're going to find a better expert than that, than Amy Shelver. I don't want to steal her thunder, but she will tell you, some of her experiences and her bio, and you will see why she's here, and she's a perfect guest for this topic. Okay, well, that's the topic. Professionalize, weaponize your LinkedIn pages for the U.S. market, for the American buyers. Whether there's corporations, whether they're, mom and pop shops, we do want to get you ready for the American market, for the United States market. We always started with a quote. So the quote today is, more digital hands you shake, more money you make. This is actually a quote that was in real life. I heard this probably like 30 years ago in the United States, before we even had a LinkedIn. As you guys know, Americans are very sales and tech savvy, and somebody told me it's a numbers game. Alex, you want to meet as many people as you can. But this was before the internet. I lived in the United States for 30 years. Right now, we can actually exponentially shake even more hands through the digital platforms like LinkedIn. So never forget that. More digital hands you shake, more money you're going to make. Okay, let's talk about the agenda for today's sales training. Very easy to follow. Amy's smiling because Alex likes the power of 3. We're going to talk about the LinkedIn profile page, your own personal profile page. We're going to talk about the LinkedIn company pages. Some of the people here, I'm sure they're founders, the CEOs, or part of the companies, right? You want to optimize those pages. But we're also going to talk about something that I'm seeing it's potentially lacking, and not just here, just that people are maybe a little bit timid to engage what I call a digital cocktail party. How do you actually comment? How do you make friends? How do you make business opportunities? How do you make partner opportunities? How do you make employment opportunities online? I think this is going to be a very interesting topic, and obviously we're going to have some great, I'm sure we're going to have some great questions from the audience, and we're going to make sure that we capture all that and give it to our digital audience once we put it on YouTube. Okay. I always have to do this, I'm sure some people that have seen 9 of them, I have this slide for 9th time now. But I do want to say just again, for some people that do not know me yet, I was born in Novi Sad, which is obviously just a bit north from Belgrade. Me and Amy were actually spending some time in Novi Sad just today. And I lived in the United States for, now it's 30 plus years, when I started subtracting, doing some math, it's a long time. It makes me a little bit older than I want to know, but I did go to American high school, college, and I started working for IT companies about 20 years ago. Started with a startup, MX Logic, that got acquired by famous cybersecurity company McAfee, and then Intel. At that time, Fortune 10 company acquired McAfee, and I had a chance to work for Intel. My expertise was always in sales, distribution, operations, and marketing, but which is getting close to now 5 years with a colleague of mine from McAfee. Kudos to David Berry. Maybe this video is going to come to him too. We started Precog Security, a shameless plug-in. You know, this is the first time I'm wearing this shirt, you know, so I hope you guys don't mind. But we surrounded ourselves with some talented pen testers, reverse engineers, you know, gamers. We are doing, you know, some gaming development for cybersecurity. I'm also part of the Serbian Entrepreneur Group. This is the reason why I'm sitting here. I'm very passionate to give back to the Serbian tech community, especially in building that bridge between Serbia and US, and helping them expand. If some of you guys are, you know, running startups, you know, if you have a great product, please talk to me. I would love to set you up for some presentations in US, in Miami, or New York, or, you know, our colleagues in Toronto. And I'm also a co-founder of a company called IT Does It, you know, where we help with the US business development. There's a tremendous need for companies to have some structured business development, so this is as of new. And maybe I should shut up for a second and give Amy a chance to introduce herself. But before we do that, just want to tell you a little fun fact how we met. 2010, there was a World Cup. As you guys know, there's a World Cup coming up now in Qatar. Serbia has a great team, by the way. You know, goodness, you know, we're having some high hopes. Serbia had a lot of high hopes too for the World Cup in 2010, and I went there with my cousin from Novi Sad. Shout out to Nikola Fenjac. And I flew in from the States, and he flew in from Novi Sad. We met in Johannesburg. And we had a plan to see Serbia play Ghana and Serbia play Germany, but we also had a plan to get to know the country and culture. I never been to Africa, let alone South Africa, right? It was a 17-hour flight for me. And as soon as we landed, we met, you know, again, he flew in from Novi Sad, I flew in from the States. He said, by the way, the girl I'm dating, you met her, I actually want to buy a ring in South Africa. I want to propose to her. I was like, wow, that's amazing. How are you going to do that? And he said, well, once I buy the ring, you know, and once Serbia beats Germany and whatnot, you know, I'm going to fly back to Serbia, and as soon as I see her in Serbia, maybe at the airport, maybe back in Novi Sad, I'm going to propose to her. So a little bit of American in me is like, that's fun, that's cool. Well, why don't we make it cooler? Why don't you propose at the game? People love that stuff. So we found Amy, who was a journalist at that time. She'll tell her story, and she pretty much facilitated. Our original plan was for him to propose on the Jumbotron on a big screen, as you guys see it in the movies. We couldn't do that because Nike and all these big guys, big commercials, they own the screen. But Amy was able to facilitate relationship and connection with Serbian journalists that were able to put that on TV, and it was all over the newspaper. And we actually, we should have pulled it up, but it's still out there with FIFA and other news agencies where a Serbian fan proposes during the game, and she said yes. Me and Amy stayed in touch, and she's going to tell a story when she made a leap into entrepreneurship and IT. All I could say, like, if you're looking for talented developers, if you want to develop your MVP and a product, you got to come to Serbia. So she came last year as a quote-unquote reconnaissance, right? And now she's here to meet even more people and potentially even pick a team to build her MVP. So without further ado, Amy, keep me honest here, and let me know if your bio needs a little bit, and our introduction needs a little bit more you know, attributes, if you will.
I think that's good. That's a good enough life summary for me. Well, I think a 7 points or 8 point summary just about does it for an introduction. So thank you. I think that's good. It might even fit on a gravestone one day. So I think this is good. Thank you. Thank you for summarizing that. And actually, something that you said resonated with me, Alex. I was remembering meeting you and just what you mentioned earlier. It's a matter of how many hands you shake in life. And I would never have met Alex if I hadn't have been at a house party the night before the World Cup game. And I think we met at about 1 a.m. in the morning, and we were shaking hands effectively. I was meeting people from all over the world who were visiting South Africa. and looking for a story. I was a journalist, so it was my job to be there on the ground listening and hearing what was coming from the mouths of the visitors to South Africa. And that's actually how I met Alex, was being out there and handshaking. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit later today, digital handshaking and how you can connect with people online in a similar way. But yeah, a little bit about who I am. I've always been passionate about the written word and also about digital do-gooding. I grew up in this amazing time where we went from a non-digital world to a digital world. And it's been an incredible experience to be what we call a zennial in this age group between 1979 and 1983, I think it is. And it's a group of young people that were basically watched The Goonies, if you've ever watched The Goonies, great film, who were able to run around on the streets, who didn't have an internet connection, but then were at the right age, around 9, 10, 11, 12, when the internet really started to take root. And so we were at this impeccable age where we were hungry enough and we had enough brain power to take on this new technology and then become the drivers of this new technology over the last 20 years. So I feel really privileged to be almost 40-year-old in this arena. And in fact, digital has really shaped my life. When I was working at newspapers at the Herald Live, I shot some of the first video content for a newspaper, which was completely focused before on the printed paper. And we started to take digital news content, video content into the online space. And it was really quite a magical and exciting, almost citizen journalism moment where you were taking cameras out and filming. Today it seems like normal because we all have the tools in our hands. Before we never had that. And basically I started taking all of my learnings from being a journalist and flowing them into PR and marketing, which is where I ended up. I found a great t-shirt in Novi Sad yesterday that says PR and marketing, so I'm really impressed with that. And ultimately, my career has led to a moment where I managed to get an incredible job working at the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, using my substantive knowledge in economics, because I ultimately did a master's in development studies and development economics, and could flow that into a digital communications passion and a bedrock in journalism. But the entrepreneurial dream never died, and I think as a journalist and someone who's talking to a lot of people all the time, you're witness to a lot of opportunity, you see a lot of problems, but if you're passionate about the world and about people, you also start to think about a lot of solutions. And so, for the last couple of years, I've been dreaming up a solution in 2 dimensions. One, an idea capture tool, because I have constant ideas and I would love the tool, a digital tool that captured ideas. And then a far more commercial tool that still looks at ideas. How do you capture an idea that can turn into money? And that is effectively a brief. A brief for any project can result in a job for any project. And that equals money at the end of the day. And so I'm building a piece of software, hopefully very soon, and potentially with some Serbian developers, called Brief Map. And then as a creative person, I'm also a writer and a poet, and I'm about to release a book in the next couple of months. So yeah, thank you.
And I do want to underline that probably one of the original places where you were making that leap towards a Brief Map is the entrepreneurial capital of the world, New York, right? Me and Amy were starting to talk about Brief Map. When you look at her bio and when she worked for United Nations, I think, Amy understands American culture, American business culture really well. And we will, ask you to draw some points, and I think you can do a really good job juxtapositioning. You spend a lot of time in Europe. Obviously, you're South African, but then you spend a lot of time in America, and you have American business partners, and you lived in New York for such a long time. But is that accurate to say being in New York kind of helps you pull that trigger? Should I do it? Should I not? Being surrounded by a lot of successful entrepreneurs, it's like, you know what? I should make that leap. I should do that.
Definitely. I mean, I think the US felt so out of reach for me for most of my early life, and then I was really lucky enough to be awarded an award from Barack Obama in 2014. I was selected as one of the first cohorts of the Young African Leaders Program. It was Obama's special program to bring high potential African leaders from across the continent to the US to study. And I was on the business and entrepreneurship track. It was 2014. I was put together with 25 other entrepreneurs and business people from Africa, and we went to Dartmouth College, which is a tiny college in New Hampshire. But it was an incredible university because we had access to the world's leading entrepreneurship experts, professors, venture capitalists, like serial ideators. And really, I mean, now that's almost 10 years ago, scarily, but that started to plant the real seeds of the possibility of becoming an entrepreneur and not just a worker. And there's something about the US that really does that. There's a world of possibility, and it opens up, and people are very positive about helping other people achieve their dreams. And that's one of the incredible things about the US. And that's been sustained over the last 10 years. And it's kind of why I keep going back to the US, because there's an energy there and a world of possibility that sometimes doesn't exist in other places. And that's not to say other places cannot nurture that. There are definitely entrepreneurial firecrackers in different spaces around the world. But really what the US does is, and has done over the last 200 years, is embrace that can-doism.
Mm-hmm. And is it fair to say that just like a lot of people here, and myself too, you're eyeing U.S. market as something where you want to plug in the brief map?
Biggest market in the world,
exactly.
baby.
There you go. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure we got that connection. Okay, so LinkedIn, that's the topic of the day. We drew some stats about LinkedIn, and rather than reading these, I'm just going to touch on a few, but I will tell you from my perspective and living in the United States, I saw LinkedIn a long time ago. Oh, we just had a thing here where I had to move LinkedIn, and I was thinking, when was it even? And I set up my first LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn was formed in 2003. I will not be surprised that if I look back and think about it, it might have been even like 15 years ago when I set up the LinkedIn profile. From the get-go, I saw Americans are treating it very, very seriously. And bottom line is, where is it LinkedIn right now and how Americans view it? And I think you've seen that. It's incredibly important. If you're seeking an employment in U.S., one could argue that it's more important to have a strong LinkedIn profile than a strong CV or resume. And I've seen people with the strong CVs or resumes not having LinkedIn profiles. I know some employers, they're like, we were going to hire this person, but they don't have a LinkedIn profile. It's such a red flag, right? But we're going to talk about the personal profiles, but then the company profiles are super important. And if you guys look at some of these stats, it's obviously massive global company. It's owned by Microsoft right now. On a technical side, I'm still kind of curious to see how Microsoft is going to revamp it. There's all kinds of talks what's going to happen with LinkedIn, because you can see it hasn't changed its structure for a long time. But the numbers are here, guys. You can see the numbers. Marketers are definitely using it. It has 810 million members. Instagram has 1.2. Facebook has 3 billion. So it's right up there. There's getting more and more users outside the States, but it is incredibly important. The stats are there, whether you're looking for an employer or whether you're trying to profile yourself. I think it's an incredibly important tool to build your personal brand, but also your company's brand. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, so like I said, we're going to have 3 topics: personal profile, company profile, and how do you engage in that digital cocktail party. Let's talk about some of the don'ts, right? There's a lot of don'ts here that some people are going to say, duh, but every day we see some of these don'ts still appear. I just had recently a case. I was introduced to somebody. I went to their LinkedIn profile, and they did not even have a photo, right? So that's obviously a bad one. But I think everything starts with very professional photo, right? And we're going to talk about do's, but please don't use unprofessional photos. People are trying to get a little too creative. We mentioned Facebook and Instagram. LinkedIn is not that, right? I also caught recently a communication between some of my American colleagues that made that point. Hey, do not post stuff. Do not use those photos that you would use on Facebook on LinkedIn. So please do not use unprofessional photo. Headline, and I'm going to subject my profile to Amy. This is very important. Sometimes people also just go through the motions of filling out the info. Don't just fill it, just really think about it, right? And sometimes people are like, I have to do this, I don't have time for this. I'm just going to copy or paste my CV or a resume. Don't do that. I kind of tell people, or maybe I should have put a quote there. It's my own quote, but it's kind of like a live resume, right? It's live. It's happening. It's not static. And then leverage. Don't skip your key skills. That's very, very important. Sometimes people get a little bit nonchalant. I don't have to put that in. And then it comes in very important not to neglect the videos and publications. We're going to talk about how actually people can find you to those. There's some key searches. One big one, again, I saw a person that wanted to, perhaps, work for us. And I always ask, as an employer, I said, let me see your LinkedIn. And sure, the photo was okay. They did fill out, and you have an activity page. I saw this person not being active on LinkedIn. Again, red flag. Why are you not active? Like, do you have nothing to say? Did you just open your profile, right? Are you really an expert? When you look at people, they're experts in their field, go to their activity, you're going to see all kinds of activity, whether it's posting, commenting, liking. That's a very good indicator if somebody's using LinkedIn. Let me see if Amy wants to add some of the don'ts that we just went over here.
Sure, and I think maybe just to leverage on that, don't be idle. The power of digital is that you can keep updating it. And so if your skills change or your perspective changes, you can actually flow that directly into your LinkedIn. And so there's no point in just setting up something so that it's like a dormant website for yourself. This is a space, it's a social network, and the point of social networks is to be social or not be there. And that's a strategic decision that you need to make. But if you do invest in it, it is an investment. And I'd say that LinkedIn is one of my favorite platforms because I actually don't feel like I'm wasting time. I'm always learning. I am always seeing what my network is doing. And I'm actually filtering my information by the don'ts. So if any of these are in place, I tend to ignore or mute or unfriend. I don't think that's the right, unfollow people who are kind of in this don't dimension. And that's a result of, well, what are you giving me in the social network? I give a lot when I'm on LinkedIn, and I also want to receive a lot. And it's all professional growth, but because you're putting so much effort in, you want to have that kind of feedback loop and engagement loop, and that's critical. And that's what the power of LinkedIn really is.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Do's are going to be pretty self-explanatory. These are that you want to do. Choose that right photo. Let me pause there a little bit, Amy. You've seen, career politicians, you've seen diplomats, but you've seen businessmen, entrepreneurs. You've seen from both sides of the pond. What would you say the right photo is? For me, it was always, how do you strike the balance between professional but showing a little bit of your creativity and who you are?
And character.
And character. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's tricky. And I think investing in good photography is always an advantage, especially if you want to use LinkedIn as a tool for your professional networking and growth. I think a very good close-up is a great way. You have to be able to engage the camera, and that's something that you're going to have to work on when through a professional photography moment. But I think people want to see your eyes, and that's the best way to approach, I think, any photography, to not be indirect, but to engage with eyes. eyes are the mirror to the soul, and if people are looking for someone with soul or with information or with credibility, they're going to look at that. Nicely cropped. In this case, you don't need something with a massive background. You can use your background image to display that kind of an approach. So just, yeah, a nice tight shot where you're engaging the camera and anyone beyond the camera. And imagine who you're going to speak to beyond the camera and who you want to engage with. That's one of the best ways to really bring a static photograph to life.
You got it. 5 minutes. So what about the background image? I mean, does it have to be, how do you see it? Does it have to be linked to your profile? Does it have to be, obviously we're going to critique mine in a second. You know, I don't think it's settled yet for the profile. Should it be something that's within your field? Where do you see that, we know we have to have it. Where do you see the good background image?
Yeah, and I think this is where your creativity can really come through. If you're a developer and you want to showcase that this is what you're into, you could select a stock image that demonstrates a little bit more of your character and creativity with that. You can also insert yourself into some of these background images, but obviously at a distance. And then the other way to approach it is to think about what your kind of key message is. What do you want people to walk away with? On my personal LinkedIn, it's a little bit more creative, but it has the big word yes in it. And that's because I really want to embrace every opportunity that comes my way and say yes as much as possible. And that, to me, is a daily reminder that I'm saying yes to everything that I possibly can. And in fact, it's almost like a motivation for me, and that's my own personal way of using LinkedIn as a constant reminder. And I'm on LinkedIn several times a day. I love it. But yeah, it can also be an external message to a potential employer. It could be your company key messages as well, and a showcase of what you are doing professionally. And that's really, I guess, a strategic decision that you have to take.
Okay, great. When it comes to writing a great summary, you know, I think that sometimes I see people, you know, some shortcomings, so I do feel that that's a great thing. I see it almost, and I always challenge people with that, you have to have your own elevator pitch. You know, that's kind of that 30-second thing. So again, it's a balance of not overwhelming people, being able to tell who you are, being able to squeeze in some of the achievements, but also you're the chief visionary of your career, and that should come through. Again, don't just copy something. Sometimes on the resume, old school resumes, you have that objective. Some people just copy that. I think that's a chance to write a great summary. Great summary would be, yes, what is your specialty? We talk about what is your superpower? What are some of your achievements? But where are you going? What is your vision of, you know, the technology or a company that you want to work for, or environment or community that you're building? Highlighting your achievements. It's very important. Sometimes I see, and this could be a cultural thing, sometimes I feel people are maybe a little bit shy on this side of the ocean, and I do tell them, highlight the achievements. Sometimes they feel like, well, this was not a big competition. Maybe it was a hackathon at high school or college, and there were only 5 people that showed up. I'm not telling you to embellish it. I'm telling you to, you know, shine the light on what you did. Even if there were 5 people at the hackathon, it was still something that you achieved. And it shows that you're able to capture some of those moments. Sometimes people feel like, oh, you want me to embellish? No, not talking about embellishing, but be transparent. But yes, capture those achievements, you know, if you've done, especially if it's something within your field. The next one is a big one, and I'll stop there for a second. And this one can carry into from both LinkedIn, CV, resume, but also when you do the interview. Again, we're still with the personal profile. You have to be able to quantify your achievements, right? I strongly believe that we could do a whole workshop just in that. When somebody says, well, you know, I was doing sales for such and such company, or I was doing development for such and such company, you are always able to quantify. And Americans are very big on, okay, well, how long it took you to, build that, and did you save your company money, and were you able to build something that was efficient? Any kind of data that you can throw, and it obviously has to be accurate data. It's very, very, very important. It's a little bit easier when you're on the sales side, right? We're measured by data, but sometimes it can be a little bit challenging when you're more on the technical side. But I would challenge everybody here, think about your achievements and what you're doing, and think about how do you quantify that? How do you measure that? Every situation is a little bit different, and we can, potentially engage with you guys later and give you some ideas how you can, but data and numbers is very important to put there, especially for American employer, buyer, company.
Definitely, Alex, I agree with you. I think the main thing to remember is that people remember numbers, right? So if you said, I helped 3 clients break through $1 million revenue, then that's something that's quite memorable. People tend to think in numbers, and numbers tend to stick in one's head. And so it doesn't all have to be about the numbers, but you do have to think about how is what you're presenting memorable to the reader? Because it's not only about you listing your CV, it's about making an impact on the people that come to your LinkedIn profile, and how can they remember what you put there.
Absolutely. I'm sure we're going to have some questions about that too. So like I said, if you guys do have, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end, and we're going to have a call to action for you guys to connect with us. So maybe tonight or tomorrow you will have some questions. Absolutely reach out to us through LinkedIn. Make it readable, meaning run it to some kind of, a spelling, grammar check. This is what I do. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, writing posts. I put things through the Google email, and Google has been really good with spelling and grammar. Sometimes I just put it to that, but run it to something, right? And make it readable. Make bullets. Don't do like massive paragraphs. Highlight your education, the next one. We do understand that some of the entrepreneurs are very proud that, hey, after high school, I just started hustling, I started building, I started coding, that's fine. But if you do have education to highlight, absolutely. Add your interests. Again, this is very important sometimes to Americans. Sometimes people hear like, why would they care if I'm building a drone, or if I like volleyball, or if I'm playing chess, right? Or if I like to paint. I'm a coder. We had a chance to actually meet, one of the up-and-coming companies, and I think that was the influence of the founder going to the States, because I was at his office maybe a couple of years ago. I didn't see it, but now he has a big painting. They're doing some highly technical stuff around chip making, but he had a big painting that he's working on. I think adding your interest helps you connect with people. At the end of the day, we're animals, and animals like to connect based on interest and community. So let me stop there, and just from your standpoint, in seeing a little bit how Americans are, how important it is to add your interest on LinkedIn.
Yeah, as you say, it humanizes you. And I mean, the thing is, the American market is massive. It's 360 million people plus 370 million. It's one of the biggest markets in the world. I think rivaled only very closely by, obviously, China, and then some big regions like Indonesia. But how do you stand out from that, especially as a foreign person? And how do you humanize yourself? Who are you as well? There are a million duplicate CVs that are very similar. And this is an area where you can actually come out. If you're into fencing or horse riding, and the CEO of a company that's doing some recruitment is also into that, it's an entry point. And it's the same as any kind of personal networking. Hey, what are you up to? What do you do? What do you like to do? It's that conversation opener, and it's that chance to get in the door. Hey, I also enjoy, I don't know, ikebana or origami or dancing. And it's that moment, oh, hey, I'm also a poet, or I'm writing a book. We heard that today in a meeting. Someone mentioned, yeah, I'm also writing a book. I guess they'd looked at my LinkedIn and seen that I'm doing the poetry book. And they created this moment of intimacy out of the knowledge that they had of my LinkedIn. And now I'm always going to think, oh, yeah, that's also, this is not only a code monkey, this is someone who's writing a book.
I love the word that you use, humanize. So if I could go back in time, I would probably change this topic, professionalize and humanize your LinkedIn, right? That ultimately helps you with sales. I love that word. I'm taking a mental note. And if you guys are writing notes, you know, humanize your LinkedIn. It's very hard to do that with a CV and a resume, right? The last one, I'm going to stop here again for a minute. I think this is a very important one, writing recommendations. And came up with a protocol, obviously 3 steps. Again, I see a lot of profiles. There's no recommendations, or if there are some recommendations, they're just written in a very too simple of a language. Oh, this person was great to work with, right? Doesn't have to be long, but there has to be, again, some kind of quantifiable thing. But before you even do that, there is a protocol. There is this, I'll call it like a LinkedIn recommendation etiquette. I'll give you an example. At McAfee, at one point we were in Intel Security. Maybe last year, my boss, shout out to Tom Hyatt, I don't know if he's going to ever see this, but we were going back and forth that we're going to, you know, write recommendations for each other. So I was like, okay, Tom, this is how we're going to do it, right? Tom, first I reached out, he was my superior. Tom, I would love for you to write a recommendation for me, but let me write a recommendation for you. So I offered value first. I said, write me a recommendation. Let me write a recommendation for you, Tom. So that was the first one. Would it be okay? Obviously, I asked, and he's like, absolutely. And I told him, the next thing, I'm going to send you a draft. This is an executive, right, for the Fortune 100 company. You cannot just, even if in all good manner, you just put it out there. Maybe there was something that maybe he felt like, I wish you would have highlighted this or that. So I gave him the first draft. This is what I want to write. We went back and forth. Maybe once he loved my, because I knew him, I worked with him, and I knew what he was proud for. But I actually did ask him, Tom, would you like me to write a recommendation for you? Here are the 5 things that I would like to have, but can you pick 2 or 3 that are very important to you? Right, and obviously he was very structured with data. He wanted to humanize his recommendation too, right? He was a great mentor to us, so that was a big thing for him. Rather than some sales goals that he hit, he was like, I really appreciate that you put that I was your mentor too. So again, I reached out to him. I asked him if it's okay for me to write a recommendation, and I gave him a draft. And he super appreciated that. When we agreed on the final draft, he's like, yes, and we can obviously see that. I posted, and obviously what followed, like, Alex, I would like the recommendation for you. So that's how, you know, you get recommendation when you actually offer something of value. So let me pause there, and if you had a similar experience, and what is kind of your protocol, or if you would add anything to my protocol of asking for the, or getting your recommendation.
Yeah, I want to always say and tip my hat to you because you're the king of EQ, and you really is really great at emotional intelligence. But this is also what social networks are about. You can't just approach them as willy-nilly. They live on in the digital world for a very long time. So anything you say about somebody else or even about yourself, you have to know that there's going to be a long-term digital record, and because of that, a long-term digital implication. And so these recommendations are super critical. I loved your trifecta and the way that you approached it and giving value first. And this is actually a really good sales technique in a way, but also it's about humans. When you meet somebody new or when you're connecting with someone, giving a compliment is one of the best ways to create connection. And it's almost the same thing on LinkedIn. And obviously the recommendations are more specific because they're related to who you're worked with or collaborated with. But in this case, I think you're complimenting other people on their work, but also giving an endorsement and creating some credibility for the work that they've done. And that's super important because it will be a vector for future work. And that's really important to think about how you can add value to your own network by doing that. And because you give, you're very likely to receive some kudos.
And I had a different experience, and I love how you said that, but I had a different experience. It was actually an American colleague, and what I didn't appreciate, we actually didn't see eye to eye, right? And she was, somebody that was reporting to me, and I was like, wow, I think she should ask me, like, Alex, how's your experience working for me, right? How did you feel me working for your team, right? Before she just said, can you write me a recommendation? Yeah. And I was like, wow, we should take a step back here. Like, and she just expected that I just going to write one. So I think just the human intelligence, like emotional intelligence, like, would you be even open? At least ask that. But then offer something of value, write somebody a recommendation. So I think that's a great one. Okay, wow. This is that time where I have to subject my profile. I am far, far, far from perfect. And I do want to explain to you guys, first of all, we did not even plan. I was like, Amy, I want you to surprise me. I have no idea what Amy's going to say to me right now. I don't even know if she might say, like, Alex, you got to start anew. You got to close this and open anew. But my point is this. We all have to humble ourselves. I'm humbling myself here in front of you guys. And I'm subjecting my LinkedIn profile that I haven't changed in a while, and I should, to Amy. But if I can do this in front of you guys, I think you should be very open to go in front of your colleagues, in front of your friends, and say, hey, what do you think about it? It's not easy. And I don't care if you're in America or in Serbia or, you know, in Canada, Australia, or South Africa. We're just humans. We don't like to get feedback that's not going in our favor. But I think we have to get into that exercise where you are humbling yourself, like, hey, tell me what you think, right? And there's also, especially in the United States, there's an art of giving a proper, valuable feedback. You want to strike a mode of being direct and honest, but you also want to be encouraging, right? So let's start with. All right, enough about that. I'm just like buying some time. I'm hoping like the electricity is gonna run. Oh, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Only if you were in
South Africa.
So let's start with the we did dons, right? So let's start with cons, right? Because I want to finish on a positive. So maybe we go with the laundry list with the photo. I'm just gonna tell you, I'm not proud of this photo. Like, I'm waiting for my professional photo, but tell me what you think about my photo here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit out of focus. That's one of the challenges that I would look at. But you do look very engaging and warm, and like you could approach you in a bar or a coffee shop. So maybe that is a good thing. And you are in the world of tech, so you don't want to be overly professional. It's still a close-up, so you can see your face, which is really good. So if someone looked at your LinkedIn profile and then saw you at a conference the next week, would they be able to make the link? So it's not terrible, but I think you could definitely improve it. Maybe get a better, higher resolution image. I think that's also a very good thing. A good quality. There's no more excuses. The phones that we have and the technology that we have nowadays is impeccable. We can have a really good quality photograph that's in focus at a minimum. And then I really love your banner, but there's a big challenge, and I think I'll let you identify that.
Yeah. So with the photo, it was actually taken in one of your favorite New York coffee shops. So I was hoping you're going to give me some points for that. But I totally agree. It has to be better. I like that it captured a little bit more personality. You guys can see, oh, it looks like him, but I got to do a better job there. With the background image, if somebody never seen it, right? So you want to strike a mode that's not too telling, but it's telling enough. That's what and we are missing it here. And if you look at cybersecurity and if you look at that background image, you're like, where's the connection? Now, I can start connecting the dots because you obviously know we're building a cybersecurity game, but the dots are not connected. If somebody looks at my image, it looks at like I'm a serial founder of Precog Security, and there's like this these characters. What is it, an animator or something like that? So I don't think my background image is telling enough, and it can confuse somebody coming to my page for the first time, or even somebody knowing me, because we're doing security testing, and they're like, "What is going on here?" Sure, our stories, we want to humanize security. We want to make it fun, and we want to gamify it. I don't think that's coming across.
No, and I know these characters well because I know Precog's work. So this is Pete and Ivy behind Alex's image. And they have a really
educating.
they have a really great story about a human and a robot that are walking a journey of cybersecurity together. And so what I would firstly do, Ivy's face is completely obscured by your face, and you can't actually see the robot there at all. So I think the image is great, but I'd realign it so that Pete and Ivy are to the side, and that actually maybe you've named them there up at the top above your head, introduced who these characters are and perhaps why they matter.
I'm going to get Marina to work. I love that idea. So just a little thing like that can, tell a story a little bit better. Yeah. So we're telling, okay, great.
Now we know Alex and Pete and Ivy in the first 3 seconds.
All right. Moving along. I kind of survived that barely. So obviously there's some basic information. I didn't want to overwhelm. There's obviously a lot of projects I'm involved, but I kind of wanted to come across, obviously I'm in the Tampa Bay area, pre-COG security. Security is my main focus. Colorado Christian University graduate, go Cougars, that's in Denver. Let's just stop here for a second. I have a question with this providing services. Obviously, in cybersecurity, we are struggling because we're just a dry IT segment. But I want it to be simple, but do you think I could change any of that?
I actually really like this because it's to the point. One of the main things that I always try to do when I'm writing, especially for web, the first thing is to have really short sentences. And the second thing is to lower the cognitive reading load, because people don't read anymore. And when they do, they're just reading 2 or 3 things, and very, very quickly. And so the more you have, the less likely people are to read what is there. And so just having, I think, the power of your triangle and the power of 3s is always really great. But I think in this particular case, having your suite of services works completely well. And I wouldn't change anything, except maybe, if I had to delete something, I would delete computer networking, because what really is that in the grand scheme of things?
And for all intents and purposes, this is actually given, I'll show you the summary, and you can obviously manipulate this, but, and obviously this is from my own view. There's some analytics private to me. I'm on a regular LinkedIn. I was on a professional. I jumped off that. I wanted to see, just as dollars and cents, what am I losing? Some analytics are lost when you're not on a professional profile. But here's one of the features. We're proud of that. When we had that relationship with, obviously, No Executive Digital, it's still out there. They can, read the publication. It's Yahoo. Yahoo is still out there. It's not what it used to be 4 or 5 years ago, but it's a publication. I think we should update this with some of the newer presses. It's dating back to 2018 and our humble beginnings.
Definitely. And I think Yahoo Finance is an incredibly credible and very strong news site. I'm noticing that this was published on close to your birthday as well, but it was 2018. So the challenge with this is that it looks like nothing has happened at pre-COG security since 2018. And so you do need to update that with some more recent content or a more recent feature. So I don't know if you know that you can do this on LinkedIn, but you can feature old posts to come up at the top. It's like pinning something to the top.
I need to do that because I do post. Let's get into something that I'm doing okay.
I'm just giving you some work.
No, I appreciate it. Okay, so
before
I go into activity, so here's that summary, right? So here's that elevator pitch about Alex, right? I'm curious about that. I'm sure a lot of people are curious. This is your, this is where you scroll about. They might as well have an elevator pitch, your personal brand, right? So let's spend there some time there.
Yeah, you can keep this long or you can keep it short. And I guess the rule of thumb nowadays, and it's just what I've said, is that online people don't read a lot. So keeping things short is actually really good. The challenge, however, about the About section is that if you're going to conferences or attending a lot of events, this is a really easy resource for people that don't know you to quickly come and collect a lot of information to publish on a conference website, or like we did for Startit for this session, to grab a bit of information about the person that's really quickly packaged already. So this is well-packaged information that can easily move over different channels. There are many ways to skin this cat, Alex. You can identify yourself, so we could rejig this to say Alex has 20 years of experience and bring the human into it. It'll be a little bit more humanized. But what I do like about this is that it is super short. It could have a little bit more narrative to it, I think. This is effectively a biography. It's a short bio on who you are. So people come here for a little bit of a story. How do you tell that story? Because the bullet points come afterwards, where you actually have your career progression. This is the moment you can actually say, this is Alex, who I am, what I'm into, why I do what I do, and what is your mission? Why are you here?
And I did so well during this slide, and I was explaining that, but obviously I haven't done it on my own. That's something that I want to do, and I'm so ready to do that. It does look, if I would critique myself, a little bit too CV resume. I did a don't here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the experience. So let's scroll for that just for the sake of the time. Obviously, CEO co-founder. I wanted to make sure I'm featured as a security expert, right? All this is, just showing my experience being on security side. Obviously, CEO co-founder of Precox Security with McAfee. Even with Intel, I could have squeezed in probably a few more here, but you tell me if I did a good job. There was a few other jobs, maybe before Intel, but I wanted to keep it short. Sometimes I see that people list 10 jobs. At what point do you want to list all jobs? At what point do you want to list, like, maybe these are the highlights of my career?
Yeah, I've had a lot of feedback on my own LinkedIn about not featuring too much, kind of looking at your last maybe decade or 12 years of work. But we're a bit older, Alex, so we have a much longer history that we can kind of glaze over the early parts of it. So there's no need to, if you're already 10 years into a career, to put your first waitressing job or your first internship, because you're already well on your career trajectory. But if you want to show that you're hardworking, that you're open and experimental in the job market, then it's very good to have that kind of information there.
And we're going to wait for some Q&A, but I do get questions. People ask me, and sometimes they ask me to help with the resume CV, and that's the same question with LinkedIn. What if you don't have a lot of experience? What if you're coming out of, we have some students here, coming out of school, right? Same thing, I'm asking them to capture all the achievements, any kind of project, anything that they worked on, right? So maybe save that for later. I'm pretty sure we're going to have that. But just to touch on it with a few words, if you don't have a lot of experience, if you don't have extensive career, if you're just coming out of a college or a university.
Yeah, and we're talking about how to access the US market now. And the US market is very focused on volunteering, getting out there, helping your community, being part of communities, and hard work, really. So it's always about a balance of demonstrating your ability to get out there and do the legwork, and then also to give back, be part of a greater community, and to volunteer. So this is a good place to actually showcase that, especially if you don't have a lot. But you can also hurt yourself by putting too much of that information in. Okay. And really, that's a strategic balance you have to learn how to strike.
Again, guys, reach out to us. If you have a specific question, be more than happy. Well, I have to do my homework. I got to go to Amy's school.
There's the volunteering.
Oh, there's the good stuff. Are we doing the good stuff?
Yeah. It's going to be that manager sandwich.
Okay, well, I'm proud of this work, and it was very important for me to do that. I do like to give back, and whether it's here, I should probably capture what I'm doing at Startit and Tesla Nation. I have to apologize. It hasn't been updated. I'm going to use this session to literally take notes and hold me accountable. Somebody might go, hey, Alex, you didn't change what Amy did. I'm going to work on that this weekend, and I would love to take advantage of this.
I think we should do it before and after.
Before and after screenshot. But do you feel that this is important? Obviously, I'm doing a lot of giving back, mentoring.
Well, what's really great is the volunteering aligns with your career trajectory. So there's actually a direct linkage that shows that you're using your skills and knowledge and flowing them through into your giving back and your private volunteering endeavors. So, I mean, it really just solidifies you as a good human being who's doing good work and then doing good with that work.
And here's a question, just to understand American culture. Amy mentions it, and I had it in a couple of presentations, giving back. And, you know, sometimes I'm even struggling translating what that means. And you can see that it's a very common thing in the United States, giving back. You will be surprised that some of the executives looking at your profile, maybe you do not have an extensive experience, but if they do see that you belong to an organization, you're giving back, that could attract them. I think your Elon Musk, a countryman, famously said just recently how important it is for your organization to have a good, kind human being. So I think that's very important. Number one, you're giving back, you're doing it for the right purpose, but then showcase that, right? So how would you say for Americans, just the overall for the society is important to give back and to volunteer?
Yeah, well, I think America, from what I know, is a country of communities because it's so vast, it's so big, it's the size of Europe, you can just imagine. But it's unified under one culture, and part of that culture is that you take care of the community where you're from, and you do that by giving back in small and large ways. And that's why the funding community and the philanthropic community is so large in the US, and obviously the economic opportunity too.
Yep, totally agree with that. Okay, some skills, you know, this is a little bit of SaaS stuff. You do have people endorsing you, right? So we should have clarified there's an endorsement, which is a click away, but there's a recommendation. Oh, there's my boss, Tom Hyatt. So let's see what he wrote. I'm just making a segue into positive things. You know, I don't know how my insecure self can take this, but let's make a segue into something positive. So again, guys, we were talking about this gentleman, and this is the gentleman, my boss, former boss, Thomas Hyatt, that I reached out, went to that protocol. So it wasn't, Tom, can you write me right? He would have done it, and especially because I know him, how structured he is. He's one of the most structured people ever. He loved my approach, and this is the recommendation that he wrote for me. Little side story, when we started working together back in 2012, 2013, we kind of, there's a slang, butted heads, you know, we didn't see eye to eye. So I'm very proud to go from we had some friction, you know, to, you know, being very close and him writing, you know, I'm very proud of this recommendation.
Yeah, it's great, and it just shows, I mean, isn't that an amazing thing to read? It's always better when somebody else says something great about you, and I guess you want to do great work so that people can write this kind of recommendation for you in the future. But your friends can recommend you as well, and so
Absolutely.
can your family, people that know you really well. So yeah, I mean, I love this, and I think it's a very powerful endorsement of who you are, and it does humanize you for sure. And I love that I place my money on Alex. Yeah.
I love that. That's a very dumb. We're not going to read all the recommendations, but I will add, I did reach out. It doesn't have to get to be professional. You know, everything's professional. But Nita Smith here, she's actually part of this organization, Cyber Safety. She's part of the Boys and Girls Club. I showed up there, brought a lot of toys for the boys and girls. You know, I did a security training. So I actually approached her the same way, you know, even though she's part of the nonprofit, and I'm also proud of that recommendation as well. So shout out to Nita Smith. Okay, we are kind of running a little bit long time, but I want to brag a little bit more. And I think you gave me a compliment a little bit about, because we're going to touch on posts and so activity, right? If somebody sees my activity.
Yeah, I really wanted to actually commend you on this because I think we've been connected for more than a decade on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is almost 20 years old. So, and one thing that Alex does really well is create content. And this is the point, again, of being on social media, is that you have to give back. And weekly, he has a Cyber Tuesday post. And I read it every week. And it's short enough for me to learn something and it's not long, it's that long that I waste my own time, but it's short enough that I've learned something really valuable about cybersecurity. And I actually really look forward to these posts every week, even though it's not my industry necessarily, but it helps me feel like I'm keeping on top of cybersecurity. And this really, you know, outside of your profile, there's only so much that happens on your profile, and it can be fairly static, one's profile. Mm-hmm. But really where value is added is in the content creation, the connection, and the collaboration that happens on the front end of LinkedIn.
And just to show people, you know, obviously that's a post, and we're going to talk about that, but, you know, I'm not selling anything. There was a terrible hurricane came through Florida. You guys probably seen it here too. People are getting scammed, you know. We are in the security of people, right? And I try to give as many links as possible, and people want to donate. There's scammy links. But as you can see, you know, there's a lot of people that capture their attention. I had over 1,200 impressions. So you want to give back. By giving back, good things happen, right? Being kind. It doesn't have to be, well, I have to write this post that's super technical, and it's always, no, you want to think about, how do I help, right? And if you do start with that, especially in the United States, a lot of things happen. And before you know it, you know, you're, oh, okay, I don't even know this person. They like it. Maybe I can connect with them and, you know, start a conversation. So
maybe I'd give you an orange overall. You're not in the red for LinkedIn, but you could definitely do a little work to get into the green.
So in Serbia, in universities, they have the grades from 5 to 10. Okay. 5 is a failing.
Okay.
10 is when you are the best of the class, you know, top. How did I do? We know you cannot give me 5. I didn't fail. I know that.
No, you didn't fail.
5 to 10, and you cannot use a 7.
I cannot use a 7.
If you want to use a 7, you can use 7.
Okay, I'll give you an 8 because I think it's good enough, and your content creation is stellar, so that's pushed you over the 7 mark.
Thank God for content, right?
Content is king.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But you need a scrub.
Yes, I do. So we are going to go back to our presentation, and okay, so we talked about the personal profile. We got to talk about the LinkedIn company profile. So you obviously going to tell us a story a little bit about the brief map. I'm hoping this is interesting. I think we're going a little bit over the time, but let's do quickly don'ts and do's, and let's jump on a brief map. So don'ts, don't talk about your company and product all the time. You know, when you're using a profile page, I do see that some of the things that we talked about, the personal profile, we can carry that into the business profile. It's not just about your company, your profile, just your achievements. Try to generate some good, overall good for the community. Don't just copy and paste links, right? I think the big one is don't ignore comments and people, and I'll let you touch on that here with some of the brief map. But I see sometimes people get a little bit nonchalant and quote-unquote lazy. People that manage the pages, there's a comment, and they're not answering that. Whether it's a positive or it's a negative, please don't ignore those. And then if you're managing the company profile pages, don't turn off notifications. In my defense, I haven't been on LinkedIn for like an hour, so those things are coming. I jump on it probably like every couple of hours, making sure I don't miss any notifications. Do's, great profile image and a banner. We're going to look at brief map. Write a compelling About Us page. Optimize your company page for search. You guys are in that process, right? Some keywords that you feel that's going to help brief map. We want to talk about that. Every company is different, but you got to pay attention what are those keywords, because your LinkedIn company pages are coming up on a Google search. You want to post regularly. You do want to proofread before posting. This goes for both personal and LinkedIn. We talked about that. Run it to some kind of Google email is like very simple. You know, just start there and carry it from there to LinkedIn. Respond regularly. We talked about that. Build a career page. I do want to ask you about that. I do have some questions. And then there's a difference. There's a dynamic product page within the company page, right? There is a company, right? But there's a product, so that dynamic has to be differentiated. I'm a little bit, divided around hosting a virtual event. There's a lot of them. I still think we have to do it, but maybe you're going to give us some tips and pointers. How do you stand out from the crowd? Because we keep getting those invites. Obviously, with COVID and everything, people have a virtual event, Zoom fatigue, as they call it. But having said that, we do want to talk about a brief map. So right now, I'm going to jump.
Now it's your turn.
Yes, so we will pull up brief map that I'm following closely. And Amy, potentially you can just give us a little bit of background. You gave us background on brief map, but what is your process now? How do you guys view it internally? You are at the stage where you want to build an MVP, you're building your brand, you're very passionate about that. Do you guys even have meetings about your company profile page and what you're going to put that, and what is your strategy with that? What's the roadmap?
Yeah, definitely. So at the moment, we're at a very early stage, and we don't even have an MVP in the market yet. We're busy building, but there's a lot that you can do pre-MVP or pre-product, and that's build a community. And social media networks are really great for this. And so we focused a lot of our pipeline developments and early sales developments on starting to create a community around the briefing problem. And so slowly but surely, we're busy growing our online presence. And to do this, you have to embrace a couple of things. You have to have good content that people enjoy and read. You have to create a brand that people recognize, so that even though you're not in the market now, when you do come to markets, people already recognize what you look like, what you feel like, what your attitude is, what you stand for, way before the product actually reaches the market. And this is effectively our strategy. So we post 2 to 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. Now, without a product, what are you posting about? It's kind of an interesting question. So we do interviews with customers, 2 to 3 interviews a week, looking at what the briefing problem is, what are people feeling, what do they see as the solution, and we feature those. We started a campaign that starts to put our brand at the front and center. And we also like to offer quotes, inspirational quotes, once a week, where we feature a quote from someone who's looking at the issue of creativity. I think this may be an Oprah quote. That was our most recent one. And so we feature that quote on our branding. Oh yeah, it is Oprah. There we go. Make visible what without you might perhaps never have been seen. And we're starting to align our brand with what our vision is, and helping people start to recognize exactly what we stand for. Now, it's not a lot. We have a small community on LinkedIn. It's only 400 people, but it's the beginnings of a long chain of community building that we're starting.
And if you don't mind, just going back to the top again, we do have there's a homepage for that, right? About.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, if you wanted to know anything about BriefMap, our kind of like company history is featured over here. It tells you who we're serving, who our customers are, what we do. It's a digital platform that we map the beginning of any project, that we come before Monday.com or Asana, and that we actually are a technology and a SaaS company in the making. It also gives us a little bit of a history. We were launched at the Founder Institute in Berlin last year. We came out of the Founder Institute, and it's a kudos and a tip of the hat to the other people in our kind of company history, which is like a personal history. Similar to your personal profile, we have a professional profile, and the people we've been connected with, the partners that have helped us along the journey, also need to feature in our story.
Okay, great. So, and this is me as a viewer, as a visitor to your site. What I say, obviously, you see some of the different metrics. How did you come to a decision what keywords you wanted to search? What wanted to put there? Are you careful with posts? Did you guys identify these 3 or 4 words? You said you're doing 3 posts. We always want to see. You don't want to be too repetitive, but you're keeping an eye on the keywords.
Definitely. I mean, we've got a couple of hashtags that we've identified, but our keywords really are around creativity, the gig economy, freelancing, and tech and startup. And that's who we want to be connected to, the community we want to engage with. And consistently we use these hashtags. And I mean, I'm speaking to the converted here. The hashtags are a way of life, but they are also a key word and a way to search. So we are hopefully featuring in all of these ecosystems that have these keywords.
And right now, you're obviously finalizing the team, the initial team, your A team. But are you planning to use jobs to find further talent? Is that something that you guys? I'm not clicking because I don't think you guys posted anything yet. But I think some companies there may be at a later stage. How good a feature that is to find talent?
Yeah, I'm helping a startup in Berlin at the moment called Cuckoo. And we recently, they're also kind of early stage, but they posted 2 job postings recently. And these posts went off the wall on LinkedIn. There were, I think, over 12,000 views for a company that I think doesn't even have 300 followers on LinkedIn. And this really shows the power of the reach of LinkedIn, especially for what it's built for. It's a job market, it's a marketplace, right? So when we're ready and when we're hiring, we've got a small team already, but we will definitely use this. And in fact, I don't think we'll even build proper pages on our website. We'll just have a small link and go direct to LinkedIn.
I didn't like this, so I'm going to like this, and I'm going to make a segue into our digital cocktail party. Oh, thank you. I need to learn how to spell. Thank you for your creativity.
Yeah, so the hardest part is the community building part of any new business. And, you know, how do you attract people in a sea of hundreds and thousands of companies? What makes you follow a company? You're already following the person, and you're probably more interested in what the person has to say than necessarily what the company has to say, unless you're a Nike or a Coca-Cola or something massive. Like, how many of you would care about what BriefMap has to say? And so really, as we're building our strategy, we're focusing on 3 things in our long-term strategy. One is content, one is good communication, and that means engagement, and then collaboration and being part of a social community, being in groups that talk about design issues, briefing issues, marketing issues, advertising tech issues, creative economy issues, and being part of conversations that are happening. And then also producing research and information and training videos, a wealth of information, hosting workshops, and that goes to your last point. Do you host a virtual event? Absolutely. If you have something to say. If you don't have something to say, it's not worth it, and you're wasting everyone's time.
Great. Perfect segue. We're going to speed this up a little bit, and obviously I just learned how to go in a presentation mode here. Digital cocktail party. I might swing back to the thing because we want people to see, but I think this is something that's missing, and sometimes people forget it's not just to have that LinkedIn profile page, and it's not just to like some things, but there is a whole digital cocktail party. There's some amazing stories when people engage online. They strike tremendous relationship. I think somebody that you guys know recently, obviously HTech is a big powerhouse here, IT, and Alexander Trubilo is the CEO. He even promoted that on LinkedIn. He struck a relationship with big partner, and they did a massive deal, but it started on LinkedIn. It was highly publicized that it started on LinkedIn. But again, how to engage? At the very least, you can like. If somebody's liking BriefMap page, obviously now growing, you're going to be curious who's liking it. But don't stop there, right? Be able to comment, right? I'm commenting a lot of obviously cybersecurity posts. Sometimes I connect with these people. Hey, we have a lot, connections in common, or we have a common idea. Connect with them. Feel free to send them a message and a connection. But show the interest in others first. Again, this is that in America they call it thank you economy. Give something of value first, right? If you guys are in sales, and it doesn't have to be sales, be a human. I ask people, hey, tell me what's a cool thing that you're working on. If I would approach a BriefMap, if I didn't know you, hey, I see you guys are, in a pre-launch phase. tell me, what are you guys doing? Like, show genuine interest like a human being. You can do that online. And people like that kind of approach rather than super salesy and, with the open agenda. Promote others, right? That's a big one. Promote other people. How can I help you, right? So always start with that. How can I be kind? How can I provide value? And how can I be of service to others? That's going to serve you a long way. Participate in LinkedIn groups, something I'm not doing enough. I'm like, why am I not doing it? Maybe not enough time. Maybe I'm not strategic enough. I want to make a mental note to participate in more groups. Obviously, there's a lot of cybersecurity groups, but there's other groups of interest. You mentioned hashtags. How do you find your group? How do you find your tribe, your community? Use hashtags. And you're going to find your people with common ideas and thinking. Just a little bit about the post and article, if you want to comment on that too. But obviously what you guys saw on my Cyber Tuesday, I like to do posts. I only did a couple of articles, but it's a difference in characters. They're easier to create on the post side. There you get immediate feedback and likes. It's in limited length. A couple of times when I was doing these posts, I had to cut short. Man, I really wanted to get this point across. There was not enough characters, and it has a short-term effect. Even though you guys saw I had 17 likes, over 1,200 impressions, typically when I post it, what I get in the next couple of days, that's it. Rarely somebody comes like next week, or there's no way somebody's going to comment on that a month after. Articles, on the other hand, they're more lasting. They're a little bit harder to create. It's 125,000 characters, but they show up on search engines, and they're more lasting. And if you create a great article, you can see people come back to it even like months later, even a year later, because it is on Google. It's searchable. So I just want you to kind of give that dynamic and juxtaposition these two.
Yeah, and I think I've said to you a couple of times, your posts are actually short blogs, which could be articles on your site and lead to kind of a higher attraction on your Google Analytics for precog. But I think it's again that thing of you want to keep it short because people don't read a lot, and when they do, they read really quickly, and so a post is a really great way to do that, and it's a great way to kind of have that first ripple effect. But if your long-term strategy is to have a legacy piece of content, then an article is a much better way to go. But it requires a lot more attention to detail and actually an argument often, so that it's just not content for content's sake. And it comes back to those three things. I think LinkedIn is about content, communication, and then collaboration. So the collaboration is that engagement, the communication is getting information out there, engaging people on it, talking about it, getting into groups, and then that content is offering that content of value. And I don't think there's anything wrong with either of these approaches, but you just have to know, A, your audience, who you're speaking to and what they want to read, and then B, whether or not you in your own strategy want to have long-term legacy content, or if you just want to reach out to your current audience and the people that follow you. And posts are really great for that.
Excellent. Okay, so we do have a call to action for the audience, and whether it's here or later online, definitely review your LinkedIn profile pages. If I can make these changes, if I subject myself to Amy Shelver, please, you can look us up, but you can also go to your peers, humble yourself, and ask them, and hopefully you get accurate and valuable feedback. Review your LinkedIn company page, something that we also going to do. I love the fact that maybe I can start with a post and take my Cyber Tuesday, that's my personal post, building my personal brand, taking it to the company profile and work with my team. And then, guys, connect with Amy and Alex on LinkedIn. Here's how you do it. You can always send me an email. You can always follow me on Instagram, but you can find us on LinkedIn. Perhaps that's the call to action. Find us on LinkedIn and let's collaborate.
Yeah.
Thank you for your attention, and have a great night.
Thank you. Hope you learned something, and hope you have a great LinkedIn after this.
at this point, we would love to open it up for the audience. If you guys have any questions for us, feedback. Tell me how awesome my photo is from the New York bar. So,
which coffee shop was that?
it was actually a bar, but
okay.
yeah. But they serve coffee in the morning.
Yeah,
so.
Coffee cocktails.
Yes. But I really love the photo. It kind of captured a little bit
my
it captured a little personality. But I agree. You know, I'm waiting for this professional photo. Actually, they sent it to me, so I gotta find it. So I'll do it. Okay, questions, guys?
Yeah.
It could be from a personal experience. Yeah, go ahead. You took a lot of notes.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you, first of all. Well, I would like to ask you one question. It's in the domain of startups and marketing researches, and first marketing communications with early adopters. As for me, I'm a co-founder of one startup here. I'm from Belgrade, and my team is developing a sport application that connects recreational athletes. Ooh. And we're in early stage. We launched our application 2 weeks ago on Play Store. And when it comes to target market, let's say that we know who are our early adopters, main target groups, but let's say we are still in doubt. Let's say we have 3 or 4 most interesting target groups, and when it comes to these first communications, and you know how it's important to build appropriate this first image, because image stays forever. How to know how to communicate, but you have to communicate, with not just one, but few different target groups until you, let's say, make all these setups and business models and other things. So how not to be wrong in these first touches and first communications.
So let's repeat, let's summarize, probably for the audience online. So correct us if I'm wrong. No, it's fine. We have to do the repetition. So, but I'm going to say, no, I love it. I love the question. Like I said, I saw you took a lot of notes, so thank you for that. I love that. You're in a startup, you're in an early stage, you're trying to identify your audience, you're trying to learn and assess what is the best mode to communicate with them. Right now, you're in exploratory phase, right? And what are some of the tactics that you can use on LinkedIn to identify your audience, best way to communicate what's working, what's not, right? I think we're all in the same boat. Yeah. I think it's a little bit of trial and error, what's working. What would you say, what are you guys doing?
I would come back to company values, because that's what people buy into right up front. So you obviously have your product, but you have a corporate vision that you're able to sell. So if I were you, I would focus mainly on delivering that mission. You might have to tweak it for your different audiences that you know that you have. But if your mission is to transform the way athletes connect in a digital world, then that is the message that you want to be out there front and center, because you probably don't have the budget to go and segment all of those messages to all the different audiences. And because you're in company building phase, it's good for people to get brand recognition, to get message recognition. And what's really interesting is that the first time that people receive a message is probably the 7th or 8th time they've heard it. They just haven't absorbed it until the 9th time. And so repetition is really key. And what's hard is that when you're in your own business, you're sick of repeating your own message. You want to go with something new. And when you hit that point, that's the first time your audience is actually hearing what you've actually said. So don't worry about repeating yourself. There's lots of ways to do it in different ways. You can do videos, you can do podcasts, you can do cool design materials, you can do animations. That's on the one side. And then the other side, I would recommend getting into groups and talking to people, because that's actually how you connect with your communities and build credibility and connection. And so maybe I would identify some of the top kind of players in each of those audiences and start an outreach with them and get them on side, to use the...
Right. And it's a product, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a product for the adults, it's a video for...
It's a sport application.
Sport application?
Finds a sport partner.
Finds a sport partner.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a matchmaking service for sporting buddy. Hey, you playing tennis? I'm playing tennis, so let's connect. We didn't know Yeah, that's a very interesting. That's a very interesting product too, huh? Yeah, that would take a little bit. The question is going to be, what is the group? Who are the players? So it would take some research, but I think there's so much content that you can do that. But I would definitely go back to what Amy said. Start looking at the groups, start looking at who are the players, and connect with them. Let's connect, and I would love to see how that research is going, and maybe we can. Sometimes you don't solve right away. Think about it. Maybe we can connect, and let me know how that's going. Maybe we're gonna have some aha moments. But yeah, very interesting app, and it's all sports.
What?
It's all sports, right?
We started with main sports, most popular sport, but yes, we want to include all these sports, yeah, to build sport community.
Find your sport buddy. What's your favorite sport?
Yeah.
When do you have time? Here's your connection.
When and where and sport, that's it.
I love it. Power three. Awesome. Good question. Anything else?
Thank you for advice.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else, guys? Anybody else?
So, interesting note for the LinkedIn. For example, I represent one startup also seed stage in Belgrade. We are doing innovations considering AI and augmented reality. So we have some brand new products that we are currently in seed stage, and we are also available in the US. Our main target focus is the US. And for example, for one of our projects, the target and the companies are like B2B, big players in the construction industry, paints, furniture, etc. And we are like into negotiations with them, considering selling of the project or acquisition or even sponsorship business models. But as I have seen, like they have on LinkedIn now new pronouns like she, her, them, etc. For my part, I'm R&D. I'm not so into LinkedIn, and I was like always evading. But my colleagues and my entire team and co-founders are pretty much oriented towards good impression on LinkedIn, and they are focusing to that. And I have seen that they're very big players. They're like 20 billion per year, like that is their revenue. And I have seen that 15 of them looked at my LinkedIn, which is pretty much like, okay, R&D, some interesting facts, and okay, bye. And I don't know how good is that for regarding that I'm R&D section, and I literally do not care about marketing expression, but I should do because I'm also co-founder. And what is like your opinion considering cultural differences and having to evoke that sensitization of transgender movement, etc. That is also currently presenting in the US, Europe?
It's a great question. So there's few questions here, right? Well, let's group them like in three, potentially, and you keep so for our audience. Let's start with your profile. Being a technical person, R&D, how marketing and how jazzed up your LinkedIn profile should be because you're now client-facing. That's one. The second one, the question that you had, this is an ongoing question right now in US too, in the whole world, because it's not settled. It's something that there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of opinions about that, and it is about the pronouns next to the names, because we are going to see some of our colleagues, and especially in the US, are using he, she, he's, her. I think that's going to be a great question for you, because I wanted to have the same question. I don't have that, on my profile and being in the US, but I've seen a lot of people are using that. As you guys know, right now, a lot of things are political in US, and obviously you want to keep your LinkedIn, politically neutral. But this is a great topic and something to ask you. My personal thing is, I didn't feel that I wanted to put something there, but it's a great question. If I'm dealing, obviously we have a company that's dealing with a company that looks like everybody of their potential client and partner has it, and they don't, does that put them in a disadvantage if they don't put the pronouns next to their names?
Yeah, I think it's a personal decision,
Personal decision.
at the core of it. And I think you need to be true to what you feel comfortable with, because otherwise you're bringing inauthentic. So if you don't want to have that there, you don't have to. Some people have it there because they need and want to represent themselves, and because they've been underrepresented in society, and it is an opportunity for them to state who they are. And other people in support of that feel comfortable to do that. And I think it is still your personal profile, and so you need to be as true to who you are as a person, because that's who you're looking for. But that being said, when you work for a company, and especially a startup or your own company, there is no divorcing yourself from the company, and that's probably one thing that you might have to adapt a little bit to. I think you just need to find your way in how you represent yourself in this online channel, and maybe work with your marketing and communications team or your co-founders to come up with some messaging that you feel comfortable with. Maybe it's simple, maybe it's 2 lines per subsection, but that describes you and then helps you gain credibility in a new marketplace that you're trying to break into that has a different culture. And so you adapt a little, but in a way that makes you feel comfortable too.
I think we were talking about that. There's never a super clear answer, right? And there's no like, okay, it's yes or no, but it's an ongoing process, and it's an ongoing finesse and balance. What Amy said, you want to stay true to who you are. Sometimes people get a little bit nonchalant, like, oh, you want me not to be who I am? No. I'm just asking you to think about this a little bit. How do you strike a balance being who you are, representing your brand, but also aligning? So there's few things that you want to do. Who you are, represent your own brand, align with the core values of your company, but then provide that good to the community. And again, it's not a simple answer, right? You got to put a little thought in that, but it's a balance. You want to present who you are. You do not want to fake your personality in your brand, but then at the same time, you got to align with other values, whether it's your company, community that you belong to, and then the vision overall. You're a co-founder. You guys have a vision. We talked a lot about the vision last night. So yeah, it's not a simple answer, but I do agree with Amy. If you don't have an overwhelming feeling, I didn't have an overwhelming feeling, but I do, obviously support a lot of diversity movements in the States, but I didn't feel like I wanted to put that on my, profile. And I haven't been challenged by any of my clients, and, and I have all sorts of clients, all walks of life in the United States, so. Is that? I mean, it's not a clear-cut answer, but it's at least giving you some kind of roadmap. Is that fair? Something to think about, right? Okay, cool. Anything? Go ahead.
To make balance,
Balance is good. Anything else, guys? Audience? Yes.
Maybe for Amy, because you said you worked a lot on LinkedIn, do you have any tips on engaging people from the company to be more open to LinkedIn and sharing things, engaging with things and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was working at the United Nations, it was actually quite hard because I was working with a group of especially older economists and people that are very resistant to all things digital and very mistrusting of all things digital. And so again, it's trust and guidance. So I'm not sure what your particular situation is, and I think the question that you're asking me is, how do you get staff and people to and communities and potential
Mostly people in house. Like we're now starting out a new startup. Like we worked in a previous one where we had more place. It was 25 people at a time. And it was kind of hard making those, especially technical people, be more engaged on LinkedIn and kind of get them to be more motivated. Like maybe post something, like something, comment on something, share something that's fun for the company to communicate. It doesn't always have to be all on the company page, but kind of something to get those people rolling on.
I have something to add to that. I had a similar case. Well, we're lucky we're a small boutique company that's growing, so everybody's kind of active. But I talked to a competitor, in cybersecurity. We all collaborate in a sense, and I talked to a CEO of, probably one of the biggest cybersecurity companies, Southeast America, and they have a tremendously talented, super technical hacker guy, you know, security guy, Jeremy, and I was talking to the CEO, and I actually complimented him. I said, hey, I see Jeremy, and this is your typical engineer guy that probably 5-10 years ago you heard those excuses like, LinkedIn, like, come on, it's social media. I'm not going to post anything. But I told Michael, like, hey, kudos to Jeremy. I see he's posting a lot. And he's posting about cybersecurity cases, hacks. He's being very active. And I also see they're very clever posts. There's call to action, right? Hey, if you're experiencing this kind of attack, this is obviously cybersecurity talk. But the bottom line, super nerdy engineer guy, very proud that, I never post on LinkedIn, totally changed his perspective. But I asked his boss, how did that change happen? He goes, first of all, it was not overnight. And it's not something that you can just say, you're going to do it. But slowly he started building some of the KPIs towards the revenue, right? Towards the sales. It was not clear cut, but just the way he structured some of his commission. Obviously, these people have a very nice base salary, but they do see some of the proceeds from the sales. And all of a sudden, Jeremy's posting, you know, weekly, and it's like the latest hack. And I was like, so it was a combination of emotional intelligence, having a conversation, sharing the vision, buying into the part of the vision. But okay, vision is nice, but you know, getting a little profit share is also nice too. So it's a combination of those things. You know, having a frank conversation, getting to buy into the vision, but it doesn't hurt to create some kind of KPI into that. I can tell you that U.S. companies are getting very, very aggressive. Some are a little bit more subtle. I would say this is a good case scenario, right? It was subtle, but some just flat out put a KPI. You have to do it, you know, and you know, like you're not active on LinkedIn. It's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting one as well. I mean, I think that's probably, and very much for people that are wanting to enter the US market, there is a huge focus on sales in the US and also converting.
Oh, converting.
So, yeah, I mean, converting on those sales, and LinkedIn is a tool for that. That's why it went from, in 2003, such a tiny little company to a unicorn in like 4 years. It was an amazing trajectory, and it was based on this fact that people needed and wanted an online space to connect and then to convert. So, but I think maybe I can use my own staff, for example, in BriefMap, because we're a small team, we're 8 people, and I'm probably the most active on LinkedIn, but of course I'm looking for leads and opportunities, and I'm in several communities, from a startup community to customer community. But what I do is I often tag all my staff in posts of interest that I see, so that I'm forcing them to come and look at it, obviously I know that they're interested in the topic. So like when Figma sold for $20 billion to Adobe, and the first news broke, I think it was on TechCrunch, I immediately tagged everybody in it and then copied that link, dropped it in a WhatsApp group, and it was like, hey guys, did you see the news on LinkedIn? And then another key strategy that I've used is to offer a platform for everyone in BriefMap to write blogs that then get featured on BriefMap's company profile. And so it's an opportunity for you to build your personal brand using the company brand. And that's again what Alex said earlier, like how do you offer value not only to your customers, but to your staff? They're your first customers. They've bought the most important thing, your vision, right? And they have to get up every day and keep buying into that vision. And so the more value you can offer, the more elevation and platform that you can offer them, the more likely you are to get people involved. But of course, you don't want to be forcing people. Right. I'm not sure this is the greatest way to do things. You need people to be super excited about what you're doing. And so that is a matter of company culture. And it's not only about LinkedIn, it's about how you're connecting in a physical space as well.
Yeah, and I just want to add, while we were doing this presentation, I think one of them down the road is going to be their heads are going to explode. Twitter. You're technical. I just cannot explain you how, that I saw in the last 5-10 years just the explosion of technical people, R&D people using social media, LinkedIn, right, and now Twitter. I always kind of feel that what you were telling me here, I saw that in the U.S. like 10 years ago, right? But something happened, right? This is a great conversation. I mean, we could have a whole day. It was a combination of a lot of things, and but something happened where I see more technical people. I see R&D people. I see incredibly technical people sharing it. Yes, it's a little bit KPI, it's a little revenue, but I think you said it. They want to be proud of that, and there's a little bit of there's a big community that's reading. So they're kind of competing and they're sharing and they want to showcase their knowledge. I want the community here to get to that point. It's not a chore like I have to do it, because they told me, To Amy's point, it's probably not going to come as genuine and as valuable if it's forced, but it's a combination of all those things, and I think you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised that hopefully maybe I do a presentation on Twitter how technical people are leveraging Twitter and building these threads, but overarching theme is stay with it, start figuring out what works. Every organization is different, but don't just give up and it's a lost cause. The technical people are not going to do it. I've seen the trends that happen in U.S. catch up here, whether it's in a year, 2, 4, 5, 10 years. So stay with it, and yourself too, right? Figure out that balance. Figure out something that works, because I can tell you, a lot of technical people that I thought they're never going to use a LinkedIn are on it, and they're sharing it.
I think it's an amazing tool, and that's making me think, coming back to one of the questions that we had from the audience, is that if someone is looking at your profile and you're like, oh my goodness, my profile's not that great, did you think about to go back and look at their profile and listen and see what you could learn from them, and then take that next leap, which is to send them a message and connect and say, hey, I saw you looked at my profile. Was there something that you were interested in? What do you think of our company? Do you have any questions? To create that personal bond that could, in the end, lead to a deal or a much closer relationship. Because, again, it's the human moment. And it's not just about what we're presenting, it's how we're connecting.
Great. All right.
Voila.
Any other questions? Great. Or I think if there's no questions, we can call it.
Thank
All right.
you.
We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for great questions.
Bye. Thank you.